Guten Tag, WAP. This is Mr. Lineker. Let's make history today as we go over Unit 0, Day 4. Today we're going to talk about Western Europe, some of the early civilizations before 1200 to give you some context, Greece and Rome, and the spread of Christianity. But let's get started with the daily punishment. So our daily punishment for today. To the guy who invented zero, thanks for nothing. Ha 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 ha. All right. Your key terms for today are Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, imperial government, the Roman roads, the Byzantine Empire, Jesus of Nazareth, Paul of Saras, the Edict of Milan, Republican government. We're going to go over what Western European civilizations were like before 1200. We will go over the major ideologies in Western Europe, philosophies and religions, and the governmental systems in Western Europe. So a lot of the Western civilizations began in the classical period between 600 BCE to 600 CE. The major trade route they used in Western Europe was the Mediterranean Sea, ocean-based trade. One of the first civilizations we want to talk about were the Greek city-states. They were city-states, so those city-states were independent. The city was its own country, like Athens was a city, but it was also its own country. It was an empire. It actually had surrounding land and conquered other cities. In the Greek city-states, they were different. Some of the Greek city-states, like Athens, and they created the idea of direct democracy. In Sparta, they focused on the military, having a strong military. They had an oligarchy. They had two kings. They were very Spartan, which is a term, very austere. The Spartans would kill babies if they were born deformed. You would serve the military. The whole point of Sparta was serving the government. In Athens, they had direct democracy. They focused on art. They had sculptures that used realism and romanticism. They were a direct democracy where people would vote on the laws. In America, we have an indirect democracy. But even though they were a democracy in Athens, they also had a lot of slaves. Women had very little rights. In Sparta, at least, women were respected because they gave birth to soldiers, and women had more rights. They could be merchants. The next big civilization was the Roman Empire. This starts around 40 CE, and it's going to last all the way to 476 CE. The Roman Empire was a monarchy-based government. Imperial means you have a king. It did conquer other lands. The Roman Empire conquered the Middle East, North Africa, large parts of Western Europe, including France, tiny bit of Germany, Italy. It will allow local tolerance. It'll allow the local people to practice their own religions. The only people it allowed to practice their own religion were Jews and Christians. Jews and Christians were both monotheistic faiths. They only worshiped one God, so they wouldn't worship the emperor as God. So it was considered treason. Those religions were considered treason. The other big thing you should know is the Roman roads. The Romans will build roads connecting all their empires. This will allow the spread of trade. It also allow for the spread of Christianity and religions. It will also allow the legion to move in quickly if there's a rebellion or an invasion during that time. Some of the Roman roads could still be seen today. In the 300s, the Roman Empire will split under Diocletian. You'll have the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire will become the Byzantine Empire, and it will last until 1453. The Western Roman Empire will fall to the nomads in 476. Western Roman Empire was Latin. Eastern Roman Empire is going to be Greek-based. After Rome fell in 476, Rome will go through the Dark Age, and you'll have small little kingdoms. Let's talk about some Greek philosophy. The Greek culture is going to feature a philosophy based on human reason and rationality. The first real philosopher you should know is Socrates. He wanted to understand humans. He's going to constantly ask questions to try to get to understand why people ask the things they do and why they believe it, really trying to challenge people. He will be killed by the Athenian city-state for corrupting the youth, supposedly. And he annoyed people. He made them question what they believe in and why they do. He made people question the gods. and Socrates will be killed. One of his students was Plato. Plato is going to come up with the idea of the forms. Forms are universal concepts, like the idea of beauty. In forms, you have the form of beauty, you have a concept of it, you have universal forms like beauty as a woman or a man, beauty as a object. And then within the world we have, in this world, you have like particulars. So like you have that person that's sitting right next to me is beautiful. That's the universal. So forms are universal concepts. There is like the idea of the form of the dog. So there's a dog, and the dog might have all the concepts of every single dog. And then when you get to the world, to the bottom part, you have like individual types of dogs, imitations. We also have Aristotle. He's going to create the idea of the scientific method. He's going to not really like Plato's ideas. He was a student of Plato, but he thought Plato was too abstract. He wasn't based on rationality. So he creates the idea of the scientific method. He's considered the father of biology, father of Western science. Greek philosophy is going to be the intellectual basis of European philosophy up until the 1600s, up until the Enlightenment. It's going to be the inspiration of both Christian and Muslim theologians. Greek religion. Greeks were anthropomorphic polytheistic. They had gods that represented nature. Zeus, god of thunder. Poseidon, god of the sea. Greek was really big with theater. There's two different types of theater, tragic drama. In tragic drama, there was always a thing set by the gods, like a curse set by the gods or something. The Greek characters would try to overcome it, and in the end, they would all die. There was limited action. A good example of that is Oedipus, where Oedipus' father was told that he would be killed by his son. He told the shepherd to kill his son. The shepherd raised him instead. Oedipus ended up turning into an adult. He was walking down the street going to Thebes. He killed the crazy guy. Then he killed a monster in Thebes, I believe. He then married the beautiful widow whose husband just died. What ended up happening was the woman that he married was his mom. And the person he killed when he was traveling was his father. So despite them trying to do everything, in the end, you cannot stop the will of the gods. Comic drama tried to lampoon the public and political figures. It was like satire. In Greek art and architecture, you have balance, proportion, rationality. You see this a lot of their designs. A lot of architecture is based on Greek designs, especially the different type of columns. So like if you look right here, you see these columns right here. You see this very classical design right here, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns. When you look at Greek sculptures, they're very much based on realism. They make the body proportionate to what it is. Some of the Greeks would actually do dissections of bodies to make sure they looked realistic, but it's also very romanticized. They want an ideal form of beauty. So the people are all very attractive. They're youngish. This right here is an Hellenic Greek. Now, Rome, the Roman government originally, before they became the empire, was a republican government. In the republican government, they were an indirect democracy. The people did not vote on the laws. What would happen is the Romans would elect people to represent them, just like we have in America. They had 3 branches of government, so they had separation of powers and checks and balances. They had the consuls and the magistrates, who were in control of the army. They acted as judges. They could issue edicts. That's kind of like our version of the presidency. They had the Senate, and the Senate was only applied to the patricians. The Senate controlled the budget. They could pass laws. They were the elite in Rome, the richest. And then they had the tribunes. This was the democratic branch. This is the one that the poor people could vote on, the plebeians. They could approve or reject laws. They could decide on war. They could veto actions of the magistrate. And they acted as the final court. So they did have different branches of government. It was trying to create separation of powers and checks and balances. a lot of the American ideas of government we're going to get from the Romans. Biggest religion to spread through Rome is Christianity. First religion before we talk about Christianity is when you talk about Judaism. Judaism started around 2000 to 3000 BCE. It was an ethical monotheism based on the Torah, which is the Old Testament, what Christians call the Old Testament. Ethical monotheism. You do good in your life, you'll have good things happen to you in heaven. You do bad, bad things will happen to you. Your actions are based on your ethics, your actions. The Jews considered the state cults to be blasphemy. The Romans will rule through Jewish elites. They were tolerant of Judaism most of the time. Sometimes the Jews would rebel and the Romans would crush them. Jesus of Nazareth was a charismatic Jewish teacher. He taught devotion to God, love for all human beings. He will claim to be the Messiah, the Son of God. He'll be crucified in the early 30s. His followers will think he's the Christ or the Anointed One, Messiah. Eventually, by 200-300 CE, Christians will combine all the books that were written about Jesus, the Gospels and the Epistles, and they will come up with the coda for the New Testament. And the New Testament and the Old Testament will be what Christians call the Bible. One of the big people you should know who helped spread Christianity was Paul of Saras. He was a Roman citizen by birth from a Pharisee family. He's going to help spread Christianity in the Mediterranean. Originally, he persecuted the Christians. Supposedly, according to the Acts of the Apostles, God visited him. He made him blind. He asked him why he was persecuting his people. Jesus did that. And Paul will spend the rest of his life supporting Christianity and trying to spread Christianity all throughout the Mediterranean. He will finally be executed by the Roman officials. Most of Jesus' apostles and disciples will be executed. The Romans will repress Christianity. Peter and Paul will both be executed by Nero in 67 CE. Christianity is going to refuse to worship the emperor and the state gods, which is considered treasonous. Christianity will, however, strongly appeal, and it will grow rapidly in the empire. It's going to appeal to the lower castes, the urban population. Christianity taught everybody was equal, everybody had a soul, so it's going to appeal to women, the poor, slaves. It will become the most influential faith in the Mediterranean by the 3rd century CE. The Emperor Constantine in 312, 313 is going to grant the Edict of Milan, which is going to make Christianity a legal religion, an official religion. They will no longer persecute them, no more feeding the Christians to the lions. Christianity soon after, under Theodosius, will become the official religion of the Roman Empire. And one of the big things that's going to happen is after the Roman Empire falls, Christianity will remain, and Christianity will be a strong continuity in Western Europe, and will have a lot of power. The institution, the Roman Catholic Church, will remain after the Roman Empire falls. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. Until next time, deuces. Deuces, deuces.